Welcome to Biz Bites, brought to you by Com Together, helping.
Well, hello everyone, and
like
welcome
yours
to
build their
a
brand
really
through
interesting
telling
episode of Biz
amazing
Bites. I know it's
stories
going to be
to
interesting
engage and
because
grow
we're
audiences
talking with
on
someone
multiple
who is all
platforms.
about connecting. And that's really what we try and do in a podcast sense, is we want to connect with you, the listener. But Marg Lange has made a specialty out of really connecting with people in all sorts of ways. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me.
So talk to me, and I know we've had a little bit of a discussion off air, and I guess I should point out as well, I think we've kind of been in and around each other for some period of time, but we haven't really sat down and had a proper conversation. And I think we started talking before we hit the record button here, and I know we're going to continue where we picked up on some of that. But if you wouldn't mind just telling the audience, what does it mean when you say connecting?
When I say connecting, I mean it means it's something that we do that is at a very deeper level. Like if we're networking, for example, and somebody asks us what we do, that keeps the conversation at very surface business level. But when we're connecting, it's a whole different feeling of the way that you are communicating, interacting. You actually are more likely to be a person more than your brand identity or your what you do for work, for example. So I remember this time when somebody said to me, "Oh, what do you do?" And it was 6:30 in the morning. "What do you do?" And I said, "Oh, this time of day I do coffee." And they had no idea what to say next. And so the point being is that when two humans come together, for true connection to happen, we need to get to the core desire of that person, which is to understand what makes them tick. Why do they get up and do what they do? What's their purpose? And once we have that, we have a lot more context. And to have context, we need to be present. And unfortunately, when you're networking, you're not present because you're thinking about yourself more than everybody else. The other thing that I'd like to say about connection is that as a connector, because that's what I identify with, as a connector, it's a way of life. It's not like I decided that one day I'm going to become a connector. Look, you can be taught how to become a connector, but most connectors are born connectors. They're just naturally gifted with people. So I think real connection starts when we start from a premise that we, as I said the other day on a live audio event, look, it doesn't matter if you're King Charles or a homeless woman on the street. We still pick our nose and fart when no one's looking, right? So we're human first, and I think if we can remember what it is to be human and show up as humans beings, not the wings, we will find a way to connect and have conversations. Anthony, how many times have you gone and you've had a conversation with someone and they've gone, "I'm so glad we had this conversation, because if we hadn't, I ...
Mm-hmm.
So for me, real authentic connection is all about taking all those labels off and stripping it back to the core of who you are, and coming together at that level is what I'd say about connection.
I love that, and it's funny you say that. So yesterday, I had a meeting with someone that was introduced to me by someone that I've got to know for the past couple of years quite well, and he said, "You've got to talk to so and so," and so we exchanged emails, and we slotted in a 15-minute opportunity to talk. I think that lasted for 45 minutes on the phone yesterday. And I, wasn't sure what he was after from me and things, and we talked about a few things, but it became very apparent very early on to me that he was at a stage in his business where he probably couldn't afford any external services. And that's fine. And most people, I think, hang up the phone at that point. And my business coach probably would have told me, what are you doing? He's not a priority call. Push him to the side and things. But I like the guy. I wanted to connect with him and offer some value to him. And we had the conversation going. And I got to the end of the conversation and I thought, you know what? In my mind, it could be 6 months, it could be 12 months, it could be 2 years. At some point, he's going to come back and want to be a client because I feel as though we connected. And that's an interesting thing that you feel that. So shortly before we came online today to record this podcast, I received an amazing email from him going out of his way to thank me and listing all of the wonderful points that I'd raised that were going to help him and that he was going to action, and saying, I can't wait to do business with you. It's going to be a little while, but I will definitely do business with you. Now, it just kind of made the difference. It's to your point, is that on the sales call, and it wasn't a sales call or a priority call or whatever the language is that you wanted to call it, every Bible would have been telling you to hang up after a few minutes because it was very clear that it was not going to go to a sales call. But yet, as I said, I feel like that, and I've had so many experiences of that. Recently, the last, I think, 4 clients that I've picked up have taken, in some cases, months or even a year or two before that, of building a relationship in lots of different ways to finally get them to the point where they're doing that. And I feel like that is a lost art. And the flip side of that also, to yesterday, I was invited, and I won't say which networking group, I was invited to a networking group. And I sat there, which felt like hours. It was probably only about 15 minutes, but it felt like hours going through everybody's, whatever they were, 30 seconds, 1 minute bits that they tell you. And honestly got to the end of it and gone, yeah, couldn't remember a single one of them. It was just, and I know some of the people that are in there, so I kind of does sort of, you glaze the eyes over a little bit with that stuff. And it's amazing how much that exists in that networking environment and how that art of connecting with people is just lost. And it's a pity.
Do you know, Anthony, there's a lot in there that I was sitting there nodding away as you're speaking. And the first thought that came to mind is, to know me is to feel me. And to know me, it's like, for me, to know me is for me to trust you. You've got to feel and get me and really connect at that deep level. Now, you did something really interesting that most people don't realize that they do, and this is what business coaches don't get, is that you were attached to any outcome. And so when you're not attached to any outcome, did you know that a different version of you shows up? The more authentic you shows up. And the
Yep.
fact is that you got a beautiful email in reply that made your day. So that is, when you think of outcomes and results, it's not always about what's in your bank. Often, sometimes we get things that build your bank of well-being, your bank, your social capital bank, someone goes, oh, you really need to speak to Anthony. That is the social capital bank. But your well-being bank is just as important as your bank account. And the other thing that really came to mind is the fact that when you were talking about, you went and you weren't really listening to all those pitches, you turned off. Isn't that interesting? That when you aren't in sales mode, you position yourself as the choice because you're so unattached, because you're more curious, you're more interested. It was 15 minutes, it went for 45 minutes. It was obvious that he didn't have the money yet, not now. Just so, the amount of, he's just someone you'll nurture. He's still in the pipeline. And he's now given you a indication. He's putting out the feelers for saying, I want to do something down track. How good is that? Effortless. not feeling like you have to do some slimy sales script, close. Like, and the other thing is that, I was just laughing to myself. We both know this person, right? We're not going to name names, just in case they're listening. But this same person has done this to two people I know. And this person will reach out to see how you are. And then when you tell them you're not doing well, that person will give you a calendar link to book a call. Is that what we're coming to? So I'm not doing well, so I have to book into your time schedule because you're so goddamn busy. And then it's a scheduled call for so many minutes. What do I have to keep my connection to a certain time slot? Like, this is where I think it's quite funny, where people will often say, yeah, I'm really good at connecting, I build relationships. And this specifically person has just sent, I don't know if I should say this, but it's just sent a Christmas card to the wrong address for me with the wrong company name on it. And, you know what I mean? And this is a person supposed to be speaking authentic, intentional connection. And I'm like, well, okay, like you gotta walk your talk. And it's a bit embarrassing when people sit there and go, I'm good at building relationships. And then you see the cracks. And people today, because we're online and we check out everybody, we know more about them often than they know about themselves. So before we even have that first conversation. And this is where I love the fact, Anthony, that you and I met in a pod. And that pod was to grow our LinkedIn exposure. And we had the choice of using AI and not using AI. And I never used AI in the comments because seriously, if we have to rely on ChatGPT to write our own comment and response, which is just a matching and mirroring comment of, I agree with you, blah, 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 blah. And I just have fun with it now. I just go, so tell me more. And nothing comes back. And so what it does is...
It's very interesting, isn't it, that because it's the whole idea of when you're on LinkedIn and you're trying to connect with someone is that you start a comment and, okay, sometimes it is just a comment, but the majority of the time it should be the start of a conversation. And almost never do people read their notifications when someone has commented on their comment. So I always make sure that when someone comments on one of my posts, sometimes it's just a thank you because there's not much more that you can say. But often there are little things, exactly as you said, the equivalent of a tell me more. And I've done the interesting ones where here we are, we're talking on the podcast, and I've said to people, I'd love to have you on the podcast, and just not a yes or a no or a no. They've never seen it. They don't look, and I find that it's just we've hidden behind this kind of rudeness. Imagine standing in the room with someone face to face and you say, and if I'm standing, here we are, and we're in a barbecue and there's a few people around and I say, Marg, I'd love to have you on the podcast. And you just looked at me and said nothing, like you wouldn't do that. Why is it okay to do that in these kinds of environments? And I feel like, we've talked about events and things, and I think that's the classic. I was, in this discussion the other day about it, that the truth is when you're on somewhere like LinkedIn and other social media environments and you invite people to an event, you will get hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of people saying that they will attend. The truth is, if you get 10 people out of 1,000 that actually show up, it's a minor miracle. So why would you put your hand up to go if you are not going to go? I don't understand it. I mean, imagine if Robbie Williams was out here recently. I mean, imagine if we all just put up our hand and said, yes, we'll all have a ticket. And then, there's only 10,000 people that show up instead of the 2 million people that put up their hand. Robbie wouldn't be too happy and we wouldn't, you wouldn't fill a stadium and it wouldn't be expected. I don't understand the logic that we have and this idea of it. I love how you use the term connection, but the truth is most people that they don't understand that terminology, that they have people come and say, oh, I've got this many connections. You don't really know those people. And I find it ever surprising, we're talking about LinkedIn, that whenever I connect, and I get my team to help me, so I'm not hiding behind that, when reaching out to people on LinkedIn, always offer the opportunity of one of two or three ways of which we can have an actual conversation. And and do you know that I think it's less than 20% of those people that you reach out to in that way bother to respond, let alone do anything? It's the numbers are alarming that to get through to actual people and have that. And I think that we have lost that art form of truly connecting. And those that can succeed, and the reason we're talking today is because you and I connected some time ago. We had a more recent opportunity to re-engage with one another. And that's the reason we're sitting down and having this,
Yeah.
in-depth conversation today. And
Do you know, true connection is also like true connection. Imagine this, Anthony. Have you ever been to the airport and you're in the lounge and then someone you haven't seen for 3 years walks by and you go, oh my God, such and such,
well, you want
fancy
to hear
meeting
two,
you here. And it's like you've never, ever lost touch. That's connection.
that's so funny that you say that. In the past year, I've got two of those experiences, very similar. So one, I went on a trip somewhere. I don't want to give too many details away, but I wasn't necessarily looking forward to this particular trip. In fact, I was even questioning why I was going. And someone close to me said, "There'll be a reason why you're going." And the best thing about that trip was I randomly met someone at the airport. I was sitting there waiting for the flight, and they come on as they do and make an announcement: "Flight's been delayed by such and such minutes." The guy sitting next to me had his headphones on, was clearly enjoying the music, and he suddenly took his earphones off and he said to me, "Oh, was that about our flight?" I said, yeah. And I explained what it is. And anyway, he started talking.
You should have said, had the wings on fire.
I should have thought quicker. It was early in the morning, so my brains weren't with me that well. But it was funny because that was the best thing that happened about that trip. So he and I connected, truly connected, and we got into the usual. What do you do? And he was off there. He's actually from the US, and he's introduced me to a bunch of different people. He is the coolest guy that I've known for a while. He's very different to me and in a different sort of space, but we've made this great connection and we've continued it so much so that he's coming back to Australia and we're going to catch up.
Oh,
But I also have a story. I was recently in Brisbane for a conference and I'd organized to have dinner with someone who was attending the conference, and we had a great meal and we're having a terrific conversation. Came to an end and we said, okay, time to go and get the bill. And I hear from behind me as we stood up, "Anthony." And I turn around and it was a friend of mine that haven't seen probably in 3 or 4 years. It actually doesn't live that far from me, but our paths have not crossed. And he was sitting on his own at the table. He was there for business himself. We spent the next half an hour sitting down and catching up, and it was exactly like that, as if we hadn't have, it had been 5 minutes since we last caught up, because there's a true connection there with someone, and so you're absolutely spot on with that, and we have those experiences, but why aren't we trying to engage more in business and day to day? That's where I still don't get it. Why people don't do.
Okay, this is my theory. So my theory is that we get some sort of an endorphin hit when we've gone, yes, we got a comment. Yes, we clicked on that. I feel good about that. I feel good about that. My job is done. So we have been trained, and there's actually I read a book called Stolen Focus by Johan. Can't remember his last name now, escaping me. But the big tech over in Silicon Valley have studied the psychological effect of notifications, and the idea is to try and keep as many eyeballs on the phone as possible. So that's why they invented the buzz in your pocket, the buzz that you can hear, the volume of the buzz, just to keep you. It's all about the phone, and they're making those phones so they don't last. You have to buy a new one. So it is actually looking at like a Pavlov's dog, getting rewarded for this feeling. Like how many times sometimes you posted something, you've really labored over it, and you find yourself checking your notifications, obsessing over your notifications as opposed to not checking them, just to keep going back to see how many people have liked or commented it. And you get these, now it can either be, oh my God, this, I thought they would get a lot more, or, this is not going well, or you get this, oh my God, I just got 3 reposts. And I actually, when I was doing a speaking gig for the Frankston Business Collective, what I did to start, because everybody gets up, keynote speakers. I'm going to be different to every other keynote speaker. I do things a bit differently. I like to do the element of surprise. So when they announced my name, Marg Lange, please welcome Marg, I put on Deborah Harry's I'm Going to Get You. You know that song? I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. I was going, and I had my business card. I'm going, g'day, Marg. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get the lead. I'm going to get your business. I'm going to get your business. I'm going to get your number, right? This. And so they're all like shocked, right? And then I got my phone. I go, oh my gosh, I've got to turn this, Spotify off. I hope I don't get any more interruptions. I'm going up to the podium and I'm not even looking at them. I'm looking and going, sorry, just got to check my post on Facebook. It's all about credibility. Right? Oh, I've got so many followers on LinkedIn. No leads. Because that's the bullshit of it, really. When you think about it, it's like we get all hooked into these likes. And, there's a friend of mine who, that person is teaching people how to earn the right to post your content. You've got to do at least 20 likes. I didn't know who's the police. Who makes up the number? You should do 20 likes before you've earned the right to post and comment. And I'm like, this is what people are out there educating people how to be robotic. And I am the complete opposite. I'm like, I'm trying to say, no. Pick up the phone, have a conversation, go up to somebody and say, do you know that you look like someone I know? Or go and say, go to the supermarket and practice talking to a stranger about Kellogg's cornflakes, whatever it is. Get in the habit of actually going up and approaching a stranger and talking about anything and nothing for the sake of actually starting a conversation. And it's very interesting that I was just come across this article. I'm going to find it and put it on LinkedIn, mainly because I'm so fascinated. Did you know, Anthony, this is how bad it's got? Did you know that now there are training courses for Gen Z to teach them how to say hello when they come in the office? Instead of going straight to their computer, putting the computer on and headphones, whatever, and plugging themselves in. And the actual article said those words. Courses to teach Gen Z how to say hello before starting work. Now, this is ridiculous. You've got Gen Z, they're the loneliest generation on earth because they've been locked down during lockdown. At the time they were having to do, most of their social, they missed out on schoolies, they weren't able to go and travel, etc., etc. And coming back to Gen Z, the interesting thing is, though, I love Gen Z. Do you know why I love Gen Z? because they call the base on everything. They want to get back to the office, but if they get back to the office, they want to be valued. They want connection, but they just don't know how to connect. It's interesting because, you know, my daughter, she talks about dating apps. She won't get on one. She hates social media because she hates people knowing her movements and her business, and everyone's got an opinion on it.
Oh, don't they? Don't they?
Hope you've been enjoying the conversation so far. We look forward to bringing you part 2 in the next episode of Biz Bites. Biz Bites is brought to you by Together for all your marketing needs so you can build your brand, engage audiences on multiple platforms. Go to comtogether.com.au, follow the links to book an appointment for a free consultation.